Welcome to this deep dive, crafted specifically for you. Today, we're really digging into a big question.
hmm
How did the Industrial Revolution change other Western nations, beyond just England, right? The unit exploring this whole transformation. Our mission, basically, is to unpack those key shifts as industrialization, well, spread out. So let's get started, maybe lay some groundwork, just make sure we're clear on some key terms and
Good
places.
idea. Where should we start?
How about raw materials? We hear that a lot with the Industrial Revolution. What exactly does it mean in this context?
Okay, raw materials. Think of it like baking. You need flour, sugar, eggs. The basic stuff,
Then
right?
you have the ingredients.
Exactly. For industry, these are things like coal, absolutely vital for powering steam engines early on, or iron ore, needed to make steel,
hmm
or cotton, which factories spun into thread and wove into fabric.
So the fundamental building blocks sourced from nature.
Precisely, the essential inputs for factory production.
Got it. Okay, next one. The United States. A big country, obviously. How does it fit into this picture?
Well, the U.S. being this large growing nation over North America, it had its own industrial revolution happening kind of in parallel with Europe.
Right, not just copying Britain then.
Not just copying, no. There was definitely influence, technology transfer, people moving back and forth, but also innovation happening there too. And sometimes, yeah, the U.S. was a direct competitor with European countries in industry. It wasn't isolated at all.
Okay, and within the U.S., one place keeps popping up. Lowell, Massachusetts. Why is Lowell significant?
Ah, Lowell. It's a classic example, really, of early American industrial growth, especially textiles.
Textiles, right?
Yeah. You had this place that pretty quickly transformed from not much into a major hub of factories. It famously employed a lot of young women to work the new machines, the power looms.
Wow.
So it really shows that rapid change, economic and social, happening in one specific spot. Kind of a microcosm, like you said before, almost.
A snapshot of the times.
Okay.
Now, something a bit more conceptual.
Mm.
The corporation. What is that and why was it important?
Okay, so traditionally businesses were owned by one person or maybe a small partnership. A corporation is, well, it's a different structure.
How so?
It can have loads of owners, potentially thousands. We call them shareholders. And crucially, the law treats the corporation as a separate entity, like its own person, distinct from those owners.
Okay, and the benefit of that was?
The big advantage was raising money. By selling shares to all those owners, corporations could gather huge amounts of capital, much more than individuals usually could.
Right.
And that money was essential for building the really big factories, buying expensive new machinery, funding railways, basically operating on a massive scale. It pooled resources and spread the risk.
Made bigger projects possible. Makes sense. Okay, let's hop back across the Atlantic. Belgium, often cited as an early adopter after Britain. What was going on there?
Belgium, yeah. It had a couple of things going for it. First, it had good deposits of coal and iron, or those key raw materials again.
Mm.
Second, it's right next door to Britain, relatively speaking. So ideas, technology, skilled workers could move across more easily.
So geography helped.
Definitely. You saw Belgium jump on the industrial bandwagon pretty early, especially with coal mining, iron, steel, and textiles, too.
Okay, so resources and location. Now, what about Germany? It became a powerhouse, but its story seems a bit different, maybe started later.
That's right. Germany's industrial boom really gathered steam, mostly in the later half of the 19th century, a bit after Britain and Belgium got going properly.
Why was that?
A huge factor was political unification. Before the 1870s, Germany was more like a collection of separate states, once it unified into one nation.
Ah, that created a bigger market.
Exactly, a large domestic market, unified laws, plus a big push to build national infrastructure like railways. All that helped fuel industrial growth. And Germany became particularly strong in the heavy industries, iron and steel. Big stuff.
And like Britain had its industrial areas, Germany had the Ruhr Valley, right?
Okay.
What was special about the Ruhr?
The Ruhr Valley was, you could say, Germany's industrial heartland. Just imagine an area packed, absolutely packed, with coal and iron ore deposits.
The perfect combination.
The perfect storm for heavy industry.
Mhm.
Steelworks, foundries, coal mines, they all clustered there. It became the real engine room for Germany's industrial power, much like the coal fields had been for Britain earlier.
Okay, the engine room. I like that. So we've got our terms sorted. Now, the main event for this deep dive.
Yeah.
How did this revolution actually spread? And what were the big changes it brought to these other nations, the U.S., Belgium, Germany? Our resources focus on how Western nations changed. So what were those changes?
Well, first, the spread. Those key British inventions, steam engines, factory production methods, new textile machines, they didn't just stay put on the island.
How did they get out?
Several ways. Sometimes engineers or skilled workers would literally move abroad, taking their knowledge. Entrepreneurs might travel to Britain to see the new tech for themselves.
Learn by looking.
Yeah, and sometimes it was less straightforward. There was definitely some industrial espionage countries trying to sneak out plans or recruit experts.
Really? Like spy stuff?
A bit, yeah. And
Yeah.
trade, of course. As Britain produced more goods, other countries wanted them, which then sometimes spurred them to think, hey, maybe we could make this stuff ourselves.
But it wasn't just a simple copy-paste job, was it? Each country must have had its own flavor.
Absolutely not just copy-paste. That's key. While they adopted core technologies, the way industrialization played out was different everywhere. It was shaped by, local factors.
Like what kind of factors?
Things like what raw materials they actually had available, what their existing workforce was like, how involved the government decided to get, what their society was like already. All these things influence the speed and the specific type of industrial changes.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting then. Can we zoom in on those examples, the U.S., Belgium, Germany, and see what the major transformations look like in each? What industries really took off? What were the wider effects?
Sure. Let's start with the U.S. again. Beyond Lowell's textiles, you had this massive expansion of farming, helped by new machines across huge territories.
Right.
And railroads. Railroads were absolutely huge in the U.S.,
Right.
connecting the country, moving goods, people, and creating this enormous demand for iron and steel to build them.
So infrastructure was key.
Totally. Plus, you had coal and steel booming in places like Pennsylvania. All this led to cities growing incredibly fast, people moving from farms or even from Europe to work in factories, creating new social classes. Big, big shifts across a vast area.
Okay, huge scale in the U.S. What about Belgium being smaller and earlier?
Belgium's early focus on coal and heavy industry really changed its landscape, especially in the south and Wallonia. Industrial towns popped up around the mines and factories.
So urbanization there too.
Definitely. And with that came a large industrial working class, often facing pretty tough conditions, which led to the beginnings of, labor movements asking for improvements. Belgium's whole economy became really geared towards industry and export.
Right. And Germany. Later start, but rapid catch-up.
Germany's transformation was incredibly fast, particularly after unification in 1871. That focus on heavy industry steel, chemicals later on, wasn't just about the economy. It directly fed into Germany's growing military power and its ambition on the European stage.
So political connections too.
Very much so. And again, massive urbanization, especially in places like the Ruhr. Big social changes, too. A powerful group of industrialists emerged alongside a very large, well-organized working class that became a major force in German politics. And interestingly, the German state often played a more direct role in encouraging and guiding industry than, say, the British government did initially.
So different government approaches as well.
Yeah.
It really sounds like while Britain might have lit the fuse, the explosion happened differently in each place.
That's a great way to put it. They adapted, they innovated, they built on British ideas, but also reacted to their own specific situations, resources, and goals. The corporation, for example, developed in particular ways in the U.S. and Germany, affecting how industry was owned and run. The raw materials they had access to shaped what they specialized in.
So thinking about our main question, how these Western nations changed, it's clear it wasn't just about factories and machines. It sounds like it fundamentally reshaped societies, economies, even politics.
Absolutely. It changed how people worked, where they lived, who held power. It caused cities to boom, created new social divisions, and shifted the balance of power between nations. It really laid the groundwork for the modern world, for better and for worse.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We've seen the Industrial Revolution wasn't just an English story. It sparked huge changes in other Western countries like the U.S., Belgium, and Germany. Places like Lowell in the U.S. or the Ruhr Valley in Germany became symbols of this new age. It was all fueled by raw materials and often organized through these new corporate structures.
And while Britain provided inspiration, maybe the initial blueprint, each nation definitely forged its own path, leading to deep, lasting changes for them.
And it's worth remembering, like you hinted, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Huge progress, yes, but also new challenges, new inequalities that these societies are, in some ways, still dealing with today.
Exactly. It was a complex, often difficult transformation.
Well, this deep dive has given us a good look at that massive shift. Now, to really help lock in that understanding, here are a few questions for you to think about.
Okay.
First, can you explain, maybe in your own words, the role raw materials played? And give, say, 2 examples from the countries we discussed.
Good one.
Second, what were some key differences in how industrialization happened in the U.S. compared to Belgium or Germany? Think about maybe the timing, the main industries, or the government's role.
Comparing them.
Third, how did the rise of corporations help industrial growth? What was the advantage of that business setup?
Right, the money aspect.
And finally, number 4, can you name one important industrial city or region for each of the 3 countries, U.S., Belgium, Germany, and just briefly say why it was important?
Testing that specific knowledge. Great questions.
Hopefully those help you reflect on the big changes we've covered. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.